Hey, you're watching For All Nerds, and on this episode, we interview the creators of the best graphic novel ever.
Big Jim and the White Boy. And what's up, y'all? And welcome back to this episode of the For All Nerds show. And we have something very special tonight. Some very special guests in the house tonight. We have David F. Walker, the Eisner Award-winning creator of the hit series Bitterroot. He's also the co-creator of the character Naomi from DC comic books. Alongside our other guest, Marcus Kwame Anderson, also, Eisner Award-winning. They have co-created two award-winning graphic novels, The Black Panther Party, a graphic novel history, and one of my favorite books of last year, Big Jim and the White Boy. Welcome to the spaceship. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thank you for having us. Happy to be here.
Thank you.
It's an honor to be here.
Oh, wow. No, it's an honor to have you here. So jumping right in, and since this is Black History Month, shortest month of the year, shout out to my birthday coming up soon. What was, the origin story for creating Big Jim and the White Boy? Did you just, want to make some racist people mad, or, what started this journey off?
I mean,
I know that's usually, the reason.
No, I actually had an idea for a retelling of Adventures of Huckleberry Finn years and years ago. And at the time I was going to write it as a novel, and I'd started it and just started and stopped and started and stopped, never really went anywhere. And Marcus and I were working on the Black Panther Party for 10 Speed Press, and this conversation come up between myself and some of the folks at 10 Speed, and they were like, we're interested in doing retellings of classic literature as graphic novels, but with a different slant, right? Reimagining them, and we were thinking about maybe Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. You think this might be something you'd like to do? And I was like, well, I happen to have this thing right here, right? And that's where it started. So Marcus and I were still working on Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. So this must have been about 2018 or 2019 when that conversation started on Big Jim. And then once we ironed out a deal for me to write the book, then it was like, well, who's going to draw it? And I was like, well, yeah, I'm kind of in love with this dude right here.
Yeah.
So, if he'll have me, and it just sort of, and then it really came together, because once Marcus was on board as the artist, I knew who I was working with. I knew I knew that the sky was really the limit in terms of what he was going to be able to draw.
Okay. And you said 2018? That's where where it all started, kind of the thought process?
It was probably a little later than that, but I know that, let's see, when did Black Panther Party came out? In 2021,
2021, right? Yeah. I want to say 2020, because it was like, well, no, I think you were having the conversation with the publisher, but by the time you guys brought it to me, it might have been around 2020.
Yeah, because Marcus was still drawing the Black Panther Party, and so one of the questions was like, they were like, well, would he want to jump into something so big right away? Okay. But then there was also this conversation of like, well, is he right for the project? And I was like, well, you already got him working on something, and you see the versatility of his style, the visual execution that he can do. And I, you never know what your editor or your publisher wants a lot of times. They don't know a lot of the time. So you have to, it's almost like, Jedi mind tricks or something. You gotta talk him into it. And a lot of times you gotta make them think it's their idea. But I was just like, Marcus has got the style. You've seen it. And Marcus, you could speak to this. It seemed like there was some hesitancy on your part, because you were still focused on what you were doing.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it was. Because it's like, publishers, it's almost like when you're in school, right? Like every teacher thinks their assignments are like the only ones you got to work on. You know what I mean? And so I was working on Black Panther Party, and I was just grinding to finish it. And they were like, all right, can you get us like some samples for Jim and show us what it could look like? And they also had like these various cues of other artists that just do something totally different than me. And so it was kind of we were in the tail end of Black Panther Party, but I was being asked to kind of like switch gears, you know what I mean, and do something different. And so it was a little bumpy. So I basically was like, can I put this aside, finish Black Panther Party, and then come back and look at it with fresh eyes. And like that was it. Like, after Black Panther Party was done, I got to breathe, and then I just thought of it like a totally different style. Because definitely when I approach a new project, I really like to just look at it and be like, what style does it need? Because David mentioned versatility before, and I don't necessarily draw every book the same way,
Right.
and so I got to really like sit with it and not be so immersed in the style of Black Panther Party, and so it just allowed me to get a fresh take. And I think if my memory serves me correct, David, they liked it pretty much out of the gate once we came
Yeah.
back to it.
Oh,
Yeah.
you know what? I'm glad you mentioned that and the versatility, because I was going to ask you with the time frame, how much of the original idea ended up in what we have now, what Benjamin and I just read. Like, what is the difference, or if there no difference? This is exactly how you envisioned
Oh,
it from
there's so many differences.
Yeah.
There's so many, even
Mm.
down to the outline as I pitch, or the original pitch. When I was writing it as a prose novel, it was real. It was even angrier than it is now, right? And it
You
was,
toned it down.
and the title at the time was,
Mm.
I was just going to call it, The Legend of Nigger Jim,
Oh,
right? And so that was where I was going with it, right?
I don't know if the publisher's going to like that.
Yeah, and well, this was before I had a publisher. This was like,
Right.
this is the book I want to write.
Mm-hmm.
And it was always this old man telling his story. So a lot of the elements were there. This
Okay.
idea that Mark Twain had stolen this man's life story, all that sort of stuff. But I think one of the biggest changes was the relationship between Jim and Huck, as I originally had seen it, and then what it evolved to as we were writing it, or as I was writing it, and then as Marcus was drawing it, and realizing that, oh, I'm a lot of times as a writer, you come up with an idea, you start to build on that idea, and then you realize that the choices you're making are the most obvious ones. And it's like,
Okay.
you don't want to be obvious about your choices. You want to try to challenge yourself as a creative, and you want to challenge the readers. And that's what I really started to do.
Marcus,
Mm.
same approach though. Obviously, you're on the illustrative side. Same approach. How much did it change for you when you went into it? I mean, obviously, you said you were versatile. You
Yeah.
wanted to do different styles, but even in trying to encompass and embody David's work, I mean, again, he said he started being really angry about it, but then he kind of scaled back a bit. But how did that work for you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, before I get there, like I'll
Mhm.
say, like, when David first brought the idea to me, I
Mhm.
was like, all right, bet, because like I didn't have any real attachment to Huckleberry Finn, and the idea of telling from Jim's perspective, it excited me immediately, and so with that, it's like I would say, like, honestly, David and my motivations were pretty similar. We were very much aligned in what we wanted to do. And we would have like a lot of conversations, and there was like a little bit of overlap with him writing like later parts of the story while I was starting. And what that allowed is like, I just feel like it's like both of our work like kind of fed into each other even more so, because there would be times where maybe something that I had drawn, like, helped an idea that he was doing in the other way around.
Got
And
it.
so like it was very fluid, but in general, like as far as how it evolved, I'd say like stylistically, what I came up with, like when we were pitching to the publisher, like that looked the same, almost the same as what the book ended up being. But one of the things, and I'm sure David will speak more to this later, is we decided, because we're dealing with so many different timelines and aspects of the story, we really wanted each of those different timelines to like look visually different. You know what I mean? So I actually
Ah,
had to. So I would say the main story looks like what I pitched for the most part. But then I had to like think of all these other aspects of the story and how to like represent them, to look different.
Yeah, that's something that I really loved about it. One, like you said, the main story it has this look where it looks kind of like something you would see in the Sunday papers, like when you get your comic strip in the Sunday papers. But then it has this brutality to it, in times when the violence hits in, where it's like, this is nothing that you'd ever see in the Sunday papers, obviously. And then the language, etc., takes it to that other level. And then, like today, I was rereading it, and it just hit me again. How the opening starts off in black and white, and it's like this misrepresentation of everything. And
Right.
then when Jim starts telling the color, it bursts into full color, and you see everything as it is. And that was just like, it's
Yeah.
epic, and
Very
really,
epic. Very
yeah,
cool.
so
Very,
well done.
I love as you mentioned, like the literal and figurative expression of giving color to a story. Like I like how that was expressed on the page. And also what Benami mentioned, that was actually one of my favorite panels. Like the violence, the brutality, if you will, the necessary violence, the blam, like that did it for me. I said, okay, this is what I'm talking about, right? Like I like that and kind of remind me of works like Django, where you're put in that time period, and then you see you know about the brutality or whatever, but when it's coming from the other side to kind of enact a sort of justice, if you will. So I think that's something that resonated with me. And
Right.
I was wondering if you were thinking about that, as particularly as other Black people or even other people of other sorts were reading this, and how they thought about that time period and how stories were told.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I did think about Django, and it wasn't until so this is a slight spoiler for the story, right? But at a certain point, um, where one of the big departures from the original novel, which our whole book is a departure, but one of the biggest
Mm-hmm.
departures is Jim and Huck specifically get involved with the Underground Railroad.
Mm-hmm.
And so as we were like really dealing with some of those scenes, and you just see Jim interacting with like other enslaved people, and really just being about liberation,
About that
and all
life.
that. Exactly. Yeah. Like, and
Yeah.
as we're getting into
Standing
that,
on business, as
Yes.
they say. Yes.
exactly. Yeah. And as we got into that, I was like, all right, honestly, this is what I had wished that Django was. You know what I mean? I
Mm.
remember, like, I don't know, early on when Django was in production, but we hadn't seen any images of it. Um, when I heard the pitch of what it was, I was like, oh, all right, bet. Like and of course that's probably my bias, right? I'm thinking about what I wanted to see, so I'm thinking like it's like this liberation story, and like Django's like getting us all free. But in reality, the movie it has some stuff that I
It's
liked, and
Quentin
others, and it had
Tarantino.
other
I
stuff,
mean, come
and it's
on,
Tarantino. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I mean, we can know, we can
We
say it.
know where that's going,
We
right?
ain't got to beat around
exactly.
the bush on this show, bro. We know what it is. We all look. I love the man.
Yeah.
He's one of my favorite directors of all time. But he's
Got some
also white
issues.
as all,
Yeah.
white as the
Exactly.
snow. And
Exactly.
yeah.
Except for when he's got to do an interview with a black host.
Oh
But no.
yeah.
Oh
Wow.
boy.
Well, I mean, except when he's appropriating,
Right, right, right.
So-
No, but what it is like, and it made me think about it as I'm drawing these panels. I'm like, what is it that's, different? And it's the fact that we just see it's not that Django didn't interact with other black people, but that wasn't necessarily the focus, and while, obviously I loved the part of it where he loved his wife and he wanted to get her back. There was a certain aspect where, like everybody else, all the other black people, there wasn't any liberation there. And it's not like one of the things with our stories, we very much did not want it to be realistic and have Jim just like be just totally unstoppable in this world
Okay.
of slavery, because the reality is it just was wild dangerous, and he couldn't just do whatever he wanted to at any given time. But I definitely did just, I don't know, like, to answer your question, I just realized like, no, Django was not an inspiration, but I realized as we were drawing that this was
Yeah.
what I wish Django was, basically.
I like that.
No,
Yeah.
that's kind of how it was for me too. I mean, there's parts of Django I liked a lot, but ultimately, at the end of the day, the movie was um, was a white filmmaker apologizing for slavery in
Mm.
his own way,
Yep.
and the white guy is has like when Christopher Weiss's character kills Leonardo DiCaprio's character, like
Yeah.
it wasn't earned.
Mm.
Really, like I felt as a storyteller, it wasn't earned. And we had a couple moments in our book where I really had to wrestle with, okay, who's going to kill this character here? Will it be Jim or will it be Huck?
Right.
And really sat down and thought about like if taking the life of another person exacts a toll on your soul, if Jim kills this person, what does that do to his soul? If Huck
Mm.
kills this character, what does that do to his soul? And really looking at what that those acts of violence would mean to them moving forward as they became old men. And you see that as
Yes,
when they're old men, And,
absolutely.
and that was the thing, like there wasn't going to be no moonwalking horse, at the end of our book. So, but I looked at Django Unchained and I looked at like, you know, um, some of like the blaxploitation westerns that had come out.
Mm.
I watched, even though there wasn't a lot in common. I mean, I love the movie Buck and the Preacher, so I watched that quite a few times. Um, and then I watched some spaghetti westerns because spaghetti westerns like it's like they have no clue what really happened in America. So you're really looking at the sort of myth of the American West through the eyes of these European filmmakers. I
Hmm.
was drawing from a deep pool of I guess influences, but I think more than anything was that what I wanted to do was I wanted to personally and with the help of Marcus with that collaboration was to sort of undo the sort of there are no black folk heroes like um of the old west, like
Got it.
the western era, and because of slavery it's almost impossible to tell a story in which a black western in which a character isn't connected to slavery in some capacity. That's Buck and the Preacher. That's every single western with black characters, right? But I didn't want to do what those things had done, but I wanted to do something different, and I wanted Jim to at some point come across like the way all these Confederate, folk heroes are revered, and they
Yeah.
were all scum, right? They were
Yeah.
all traitors to their nation, and and now we're dealing with their descendants, right? This book was for them and their descendants, and for me to tell them what I really think of them, right? And Jim became my sort of my fantasy figure, right? Like some of us
Yeah.
have fantasy football leagues or whatever. I have
Yeah.
my fantasy revenge killer. That was Jim.
Yeah. Is he a myth or is he a legend? Like one of your characters
Yes.
says in the book. Which one is it?
I still get confused between myth and legend, although I do know the difference now. I still get confused from time to time.
What is the difference then?
A legend is something that comes from reality, can be based in reality, whereas myth is like
Just made
it's
that shit
it's
up.
just all completely made up. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's so really like the history of the United States that most of us are taught in school is a
The
myth.
Yeah.
myth.
Yeah.
Mm,
It's the myth.
that's hilarious too. And especially what you were talking about. I did a podcast yesterday where we were talking about what's the biggest crash out by like a nation, like as far as like a wartime crash out,
Mm. Hmm.
and we had to bring up the Civil War.
Yeah.
And we're like,
Oh,
anytime
yeah.
a country just wilds out, enough
On
where it's like,
itself.
the South is like, we want slaves that bad that we are willing to wild out, and start killing the rest of the same country. That's a
Yeah.
big crash out. So yeah, they were traitorous scum, as you called them. So, thanks for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. David, you said something just a moment ago when you said that, things we're taught in school are myths, right? About American history and particularly slavery, and they always understate to use a very understated word. They very understate how bad slavery was. And
Mm.
there is a point in this book where the character, and it felt very real to me, fiction or otherwise, where the character is talking to her grand or the great grand talking to her grand, whatever it may be, and explaining, well, that's even though they taught me one thing in school, it was a very different story from what my parents taught me. And that
Mhm.
is a well-known thing, particularly in Black American culture, where like the stuff, at least until I got to school, Howard University, what's up? That everything that I was taught at school was complete, almost backwards or opposite to what I was corrected and taught when I was home. You know, I learned something,
Yeah.
brought it home and said, hey, dad, hey, mom, this is what they told us. And they like, okay, but you know what I mean? How did you think about that? Like how when children or even younger folks who may not have that same type of education may read a book like this and go, well, wait a minute. That's not what I read in the, you know, even though it's just fiction, still like
Yeah.
this is coming from somewhere.
No, that was a huge motivator for me because I went through that as a kid, right? Like I was
Mm,
the stories that my grandparents told me about their lives growing up in the South, they were all from Southern Virginia, like just above North Carolina, you know, and they would tell me stories that didn't line up with what I was learning in school, and so um, I became really obsessed with history at an early age, and realized that you know you get these brief history lessons all throughout your career from elementary school into high school, um, and it's always the same thing, right?
yeah.
And I was probably in like third or fourth grade when I was like, okay, so Lincoln freed the slaves, and then Martin Luther King Jr. made it possible for us to ride in the front of the bus. What happened in
What's
between
in
those two
between? Yeah.
things? Because that's the way history, especially when I was a kid,
Oh
that's the way history
man.
was taught, right?
Straight
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
up
And
Yep.
to this
and
day.
I remember watching as a kid watching Roots when it was first on TV, and I wasn't even 10 years old at the time, but I remember thinking because it pretty much ends with the emancipation, the end of the war, that sort of stuff, right? And but I just remember thinking then, well, what happened next?
Mm,
And I was, you know, as a kid, I was always asking these sort of questions, always sort of, you know, I was wondering why every Western I saw as a kid growing up, for the most part, never had black people in it. And I was like, did black people not, were they, you know, did they not ride horses? Did they not, you know,
mm,
and so those questions that I started asking at an early age led to an interest that then led to an obsession and a passion. And then I wanted to start exploring it creatively, right? And especially that, you know, the history of what happened from, you know, the end of the Civil War up till today is like so skewed and so crazy. And you know, you talk about Reconstruction, and most people don't know what Reconstruction is.
yeah.
They're like, well, what do you mean? What's Reconstruction? And it's
Mm,
like, yeah, that's called the you know, it's one of the many failures of this nation was the way that Reconstruction was squashed. You talk about the prison industrial complex, or you talk about police, law enforcement, and all of it, everything was designed to keep us in check. And once you start figuring that out, you can't help but get angry, you know, and then you can't help but have it influence your work in some capacity.
You know, you would think, but but at the same time, like you said, that was one of the failures of this nation. But it's also could be said, sadly, that it's one of the successes of this nation because, like you said, everything is designed to keep us in check. So there was no, Reconstruction wasn't gonna go down where it's like they give everybody 40 acres and a mule because they know that would not keep us in check. So one, I just really do want to thank both of you again for creating this book and for like allowing it, out into the universe because we're living in this time
yeah.
as we see right now where, America seems determined to rewrite history for the worse. And like you said, David, like growing up, it's same. And I think it might be worse now, but I know for most times, for pretty much anyone in America, that was it. Slavery, Martin Luther King. Peace out, And I don't know what else they did after that, maybe Kwanzaa, That might be
Yeah.
it. Then y'all had Kwanzaa, and then and now we're here, Cosby Show. So I was like,
I
how
mean,
does
most
it?
people don't know. Like, most people don't even know how Kwanzaa came about.
No,
I
no.
drop that on people, and they get really upset with me because I'll be like, "Yeah, I don't celebrate Kwanzaa."
Yeah.
Mm,
Ever.
Yeah. There's a
mm.
lot of sordid history behind that.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
yeah.
ain't there always in everything?
Yep.
It's like,
Yeah.
we just
Yeah.
can't
Right.
have nice things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, since you're mentioning it, Ben, how do y'all feel right now with, and maybe because y'all are from a certain time, y'all have been seeing this, right? How does it feel? Does it feel like history's being rewritten? Does it feel like same old, same old? Like, how are you feeling in the current state of things?
Well, I'm stressed out all the time, you
Mm,
know, but I've been stressed out my whole life.
There we go.
mm,
Right.
That's the thing. So, Marcus, I don't know. I mean, we haven't talked about it
Yeah.
too much, but it's like, I mean, I've been dealing with, yeah, I'm high yellow, but I've been dealing with racism like forever.
yeah.
Like kindergarten. Kindergarten was the first time another kid called me a nigger to my face,
Mm,
right? And so that was 50 something years ago, right? So it's like this is part of it. And so when something really terrible happens, you know, it's like, oh, okay, wait a sec. But wait a minute, and we've seen this before. And even when when our Black Panther Party book came out, the day the day I wrote the afterword for the book
Yeah.
was the day after George Floyd was murdered.
mm.
Wow.
And all of the cities, there's all these uprisings in the cities, and people are acting like, I can't believe this is happening. And I was the one who, I was on took to social media and I was like, yeah, this is all in the Kerner Commission report. And everyone was like, what's the Kerner Commission report? And I was like, it was the report that was commissioned by the government that said this is what is going to happen if we don't change race relations. And we didn't change race relations. And the Kerner Commission report, if I remember correctly, was 60s, it was either
Late.
64 or 67.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't remember which year. And so, you look around at the stuff and you just go, yeah, no, this is like it's that what's surprising to me is um like how much of so I'm part of Generation X, like the angry generation that was raised on punk rock and hip hop, and we hated Ronald Reagan, we hated the Bushes, and it's like, well, we failed somewhere. Like we should be
Bruh.
running things by now, right? And it's just interesting because it's like I know a lot of those guys, and it doesn't matter when I say guys, a lot of people, white and black, who were die hard, whether they were listening to the Sex Pistols or they were listening to NWA, like where did they go? Where did they turn out? And they forgot, they lost their souls. They sold their souls.
Yeah.
How you
And
feeling, Marcus?
man, I mean, first of all, like all of us, but I think for me, like one of the things is, so my daughter was 8 when in 2016, and so she was with us, she went to protest. She knew what was up, but she knew what was up as an informed 8-year-old, you know what I mean? Like, so now it is, just 8 years of childhood development, which might as well be a lifetime. And so it's like her understanding of things, her questions and everything, is on a whole different level. And so as a parent, it's just wild. And and she deals with anxiety and I guess like all of us, but in her own way. And so it's like a lot of there's that balance of like supporting your child, right? And supporting your
Mm-hmm.
child. And like I would say black people in any era, we've had to explain the unreasonable to our children, like what we were all talking about, right?
Yeah.
And when you kind of first start seeing that history doesn't add up to what you're taught, but with it's interesting because it's like I got my own stress on a daily, and you can't like necessarily wear that like straight up, because your kids see that, they take it on. So it's a balance. I still feel it, and to everybody's point, we've been dealing with racism, we've been dealing with these structures in this country, but I think the thing that's different is it's pointed. You got people pulling the overlap of business and billionaires being
Mm.
able to like grab this level of control. I mean, many of us, I've heard you guys on this show, talking about the parallels with Parable of the Sower with Octavia Butler,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that was like in 2016, and we've
Mm-hmm.
been there, but it's like even more pointed. It's like if somebody wrote this as a script, like Elon Musk having this level of control, you would say it was kind of on the nose. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, how am I doing? I don't
How
know.
are you doing,
It's
Red?
like I'm
Yeah. I mean,
I'm doing.
I get it. I mean, and I raise it just because I am interested in just how y'all are feeling about this. And also, as mentioned, just like, on one hand, like I'm like for me, like, yes, I'm in my 30s. I've been dealing with this my whole life too, but like I haven't seen it to the extent that
Yeah.
has been happening forever, right? Or seemingly forever. And then for it to feel this intense is I feel very intense, but I'm like, what do others who have been here feel? Is this truly intense, or is this something that's been going on? And then when I think about your book and how much joy is gave me in the last, like really, because I finished it a few hours ago. In the last few hours, I've been down bad mentally,
Mm.
and
Mhm.
I think it's important that the creative the creative piece gets to be amplified because
Yeah.
that's the creativity. Like a lot of people are scared to say, well, I have something creative, I have a new book, I have this, I have that, but it's such a negative space. I think people need that. And I just wanted to share that I needed this book.
I'm glad you said that, because I will say this, despite all of the doom and gloom I was just saying, I 100% believe that like creative people have a place, and specifically like black creative people, but marginalized creative people in general, just
Mm-hmm.
creative people in general, we have a place in every movement, um in standing up to power. It's one of the reasons why like books, artwork, if you look back at all the times in history when authoritarians wanted to suppress, they always would suppress creative people and the things that we made, because it can inspire people. And I will say this, like, um I know for myself personally, I have just some personal projects that, aside from comics, that are definitely gonna like I'm definitely gonna channel my feelings about what's going on, and also like try to inject some level of that same hope you're talking about,
Yeah.
because we have survived a lot of stuff. There's days when you look at headlines and everything, and I take breaks, but there's days when you read the news and it feels like, um I don't know. It's like
Yeah.
there's multiple dialogues going on from people right now who are dismayed with what's happening, and some people are like, "Yo, chill. We've been through this or whatever. It's not going to be anything." And I don't think that's completely right. I do think there's some wisdom in looking at the survival of us as a people. There's a
Okay.
Baldwin quote, one of my favorite Baldwin quotes. Um, you know, it closes. He basically is at the end of Fire Next Time, and he says, just gonna paraphrase it, but he says, "I know what I'm asking you is impossible, um, but in our time, as in all times, uh, the impossible is the least we can ask." And then he says something to the effect of,
Mm.
"If you look at Black people, we are the perpetual achievement of the impossible." And I feel that. I feel that in my soul. You know what I mean? And so it's not quite like everybody chill. There's no problems because we've been through this. But it also is that Baldwin quote is real. So
Mm.
I don't know. I feel like creative people got a part to play. Everybody has a part to play, but I definitely, um, I don't feel like backing down because of all the suppression. If anything, I'm kind of like, fired up, and I know David is as
Oh yeah.
well. Matter of fact, David said to me when, or no, it wasn't even. I don't even think we were working on Big Jim yet, but it was like back when we were doing interviews about the Black Panther Party. and people would ask us what's next, and Dave was like, "Oh, we can't say, but you know, I'm definitely going to be working on something that'll get us banned in Texas." So we know
Love
what it
it.
was. We know what it was before we even put pen to page.
Got
Yeah,
it.
and for me, I mean, I'm Marcus and I have a lot of similar beliefs and ideology, and I was I sometimes think about these things, and one of the things that I am really cognizant of is how do I react to stuff, right?
Mm.
How do I react to the things that I don't have control over, and how do I control myself in those feelings when I feel like I'm losing it, right? And so to me, it's been really crucial to just um, you know, to stay focused and to stay like I don't watch the news that much anymore. I don't read the news that much anymore because I understand how I'm being manipulated, right? But
Mm,
then I also stop and think about the fact that like my grandparents were manipulated, right? My great grandparents were manipulated. My great great grandparents were manipulated, and they didn't have Prozac or Xanax or legalized weed in half the states. They had survival at its most basic, right? So I
mm,
know that I'm really blessed, but I have I guess a responsibility, for lack of a better term. And I've thought about like, okay, how do I approach my role in the preservation of history, making sure that our history doesn't get erased, and what is it that I'm going to talk about in my next future projects, and share with people, and then they can disseminate it any way they want. I mean, that's what I had to do. I had to disseminate that information, and I was the one who was like, wait a minute, why is this all we're getting in our
mm,
in our school books? When I was a kid, there was no Black History Month when I was a kid. Juneteenth wasn't a thing when I was a kid. You know what I'm saying? Like we have to always focus on looking at where we are, where we've been, and how do we learn how to navigate so that we don't just keep going in this perpetual circle, which is really what we're doing, is this
Yeah.
perpetual circle.
Yeah.
We've never been, in the history of this country, we have very seldom have there been times where we've had the luxury of being human beings. Okay. And some people see us that way. And some of those people who see us that way also are willing to turn a blind eye when our humanity is stripped of us, right?
Mhm.
mm,
And what we need to understand is that those people who deny us our humanity, and there's a lot of them, they have to give up their humanity in order to take it away from us. And so then the struggle becomes not just how do I assert my humanity, how do all of us assert our humanity? What is it that how can we help these other people get theirs back? Because otherwise you're just going to keep going in the same circles over and over again. So, I get pretty philosophical about it. That's why I don't go out much. I don't drink. I don't, um, but I channel it into my work, and I just, all four of us are living proof of what happens when people don't give up. you know
mm.
um
Yeah.
that our ancestors who didn't give up, even relatives may come and go. I didn't have a
Yeah.
dad growing up, but I had grandparents, I had aunties and uncles and cousins, and we survive, right? And we help each other survive. That's what Big Jim and the White Boy is about.
Right.
Yeah.
that's what I
So,
tried to that's what Marcus and I tried to give to people, and hopefully, and it sounds like you've got it, and hopefully other people will get it.
Mm. And that's something that I think we both loved about the book is like the relationship between Big Jim and Huck.
yeah.
And
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
like I'm always, I grew up my best friend, the first kid I ever met in kindergarten is a kid named Zev, and I'm tight with him to this day. And Zev's a little Jewish kid. And then my other best friend is a black kid named Andrew. And so those were my two best friends, and I'm still, super tight with both of them to this day. So I've always had, I guess, interrelational friendships or whatever. And I've never understood when people are, don't think that one, that Black people are like that, and that most people, in America don't grow up like that. So I
Yeah.
just love to
Mm.
see that friendship between them. And we were talking about surreal moments, and one of my for real favorite moments, that because I don't want to spoil too much. I have a few favorite. Like when I reread it today, like there's stuff in the book that really brought me to tears, but something that just has me rolling every time is when Huck is getting the explanation of the difference between a man and a
Mm.
ninja,
A
for
ninja. Yeah.
lack of better words.
Yeah.
Right.
And Huck gives this slight side eye to the audience, like semi breaking the fourth wall. And I guess he could be looking at Jim, but for me, I'm gonna go that he's like
He's looking at you.
y'all hear this shit, And so,
You hear this nigga?
yeah, so,
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
who thought of that, moment right there? Because that was just, one of my favorites in the book.
Man,
I'm gonna
I
say
don't I
it.
don't want to. Yeah.
Oh, go
Oh, you
on.
go ahead, Dave. No, you go ahead, Dave.
I think it's a combination of the two of us. I mean, you know, I understand Marcus's art, and I know what he's capable of, and I also know that there's stuff that he may not have drawn yet, but that he could do it if I asked him.
Mm.
And so a lot of it was thinking about, okay, what do I want to see here in this individual panel, this scene? And there'd be times where pages would show up and he'd be like, yo, where did he come up with this?
Mm.
Like there were sequences in the
Mm.
book that I was just like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And he'd be like, because he's real chill, he'd be like, yeah, you wrote that. And I'd be like, I did. I go back and look at the script, like, oh, I did write that. Um, but I wanted there to be little bits and pieces of things in the story that when you were done reading it, things would add up and you go, oh, wait a minute, I need to go back and look at that one sequence because there's a
Yeah.
little hint that gets dropped as to this thing, that thing, the other thing.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think in both story and illustration, you guys, I don't know. I mean, I know how you do it, but also don't know how you do it. And that's why you got this book. But you managed to take very certain simple ideas and made them very layered. So, like that initial, like you see Jim and Huck, like Ben, you mentioned, we love their relationship, and it seems like at first it's just a buddy camaraderie, like a buddy film type thing, right? Where they're playing off each other, they're each other's foils, is very comedic, but then it turns into something very different and unexpected. And for obvious reasons, I'm not going to give away, but I just thought that was really powerful. Lots of times people will see like that buddy approach and think, oh, it's just comedy, right? But to kind of turn that to something really beautiful, I thought was really nice. And I thought it was a really good touch.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
We put in that work, and I say we because it was a team effort, and that the book wouldn't be what it is without the art, plain and simple. Everybody who
Yeah.
picks it up is like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. And there's a couple key pages that when they turn to them, they're like, oh, it's like, yep, that's it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But like, this comic book medium, you can do such incredible things with it. And there's stuff that overlaps with other storytelling mediums, but when it comes down to it, it's like it's really its own thing. You know what I mean? And like um it's just when you have, because like Dave and I just we have like a great like creative like relationship, and we're friends. And I've been fortunate that like all of the comic projects I've worked on like have been positive experiences. But like I feel like, like we're just kind of like keyed in on things, and
Yeah.
um the ideas that he has, like, like when he presents them to me, I'm like, yeah, of course. Like, that makes sense.
Mm.
And I know David said early on when we were working on this, I think before we like really got to work, he said that, you know, he wants to really push the medium and like not just, you know, do what's been done before, um, and just like tell a simple story. Like we really wanted to be ambitious. And so I had that in mind, and like for me, like creatively, like the idea of like a big challenge, like it's
Yeah.
like I'm like, all right, let's go. Like, you know what I mean? Cause like I don't yeah, it's like as one, if anything, it's like my fearlessness in life, period, definitely grew from my creativity. Cause like I always say,
Got
like
it.
creative people, if you're like, because what you're doing is like you're taking like a piece of your soul, your heart, your thoughts, whatever, and you are putting it out there for people to see. You know what I mean? And there's there's a certain amount of bravery that comes with that, like, and um and so like that helped me like overcome a lot of things in life, when it came to like fears or whatever. And so yeah, so those challenges and like being told like, all right, we're gonna make like this super ambitious book and we're gonna push the medium. I was like, let's go. You know?
Yeah. And make people cry too. So do you know you make
Yeah.
people cry with your art?
Yo, I'm not even kidding. Cause all right. So like when I some of the scenes that I'm sure you're talking about, when I read them, like I did, I'm not ashamed to say, like, I shed a tear. And as I was drawing them, I was like, oh wow, like people are going to feel this. And it wasn't like ego. It wasn't like, oh, we're so dope. We're gonna make people cry. It
Yeah.
was just like, I think the reason why that thought was in my head is because I think we were getting at a truth. You know what I mean?
Yes.
About like people and relationships and yeah. So I mean, yes.
Yes.
But every time I hear that though, that it did impact somebody in that way, I'm like, I'm honored because I know that we achieved what we set out to do, but it wasn't even to like manipulate people and make people feel something. It's because it's something that I think is in all of us, and like, like I said, it's getting at a truth that is shared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
I
think
had
it's more
this.
like sharing something with people. Right.
Hmm.
There was a couple of scenes where I was writing them, and as I was writing them, I started to cry, and that's when I knew I was onto something, right? And so I said to Marcus, I was like, "Hey, man, I gotta tell you, I just wrote this. I just wrote something that's gonna make you cry." And there
Yeah.
was like probably a 2 month window between when I had written that and then I sent it to him. He's working on other pages, and then he gets caught up, and then I get this text. You made me cry, And
Uh,
like okay,
it's
Yeah.
and
real.
and again, it's not meant to be manipulative, but I was just talking to some people about this the other day, not just with comics and graphic novels, but with books in general. I was like, when was the last time you read something that made you cry? When was the last
Mm.
time you read something that made you laugh out loud? When was the last time you read something that you were scared to turn the page, or when you turned the page, you were, oh, I was like, this is what we should be going for, right?
Yeah.
And
Mm.
I felt
Yeah.
that Huckleberry Finn is Adventures of Huckleberry Finn is considered literature, which I do believe it is literature. I felt like our retelling of it should be nothing less than literature. And just because it
Mm.
has a lot of pictures doesn't mean we can't do that. And if we're not trying for that, then why are we here? You know, it's either go hard or go home. And that was it. And so we just, we caught lightning in a bottle. We really did. But I also think, with the, and I say this in all humility, like Marcus and I have been working at our respective crafts for a very long time. So it's not like we weren't capable of it. We just needed to have the right project at the right time to really show what we were capable of.
Mm.
Mm.
Well, y'all won. Y'all did that. To say the least. I'm gonna tell the truth. I don't give a damn about Huckleberry Finn or whatever before this.
Same.
And
Same.
I mean, after this,
Same.
again, I know that's still the base, but this made me actually care because I was like, well, I don't know if I care. I don't know if I care. When Ben I mean first told me about this book, I was like, big Jim, what? What's he talking about? And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, I know the people who wrote it, who drew it, but so what? Who cares, right? But this is something that you absolutely have to pick up. So I absolutely recommend it. Recommend it for
Thank you.
everybody.
If I could say briefly, I 100% agree with that. If anything, that is something I really want people out there to know, that like you don't have to have a pre-existing relationship with the Adventures of Huckleberry Finn to appreciate
Mm-mm.
this book, at
Yeah.
all. And honestly, the way that we created it, we give you a lot of basically the story and the context, all the story and the context you need.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And there's some like interrogation of that original story, within the pages of the book. You know?
Absolutely.
I
and
think
and
the
that's the
most.
thing. I hate Sound of Music. I really truly hate Sound of Music. But John Coltrane's version of My
Mhm.
Favorite Things is one
Mm.
of my favorite songs of all time.
I see what you're saying.
Right. So you can have a different version of the same thing and have it mean something to you, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's how do you want to explore it, and how open do you want to be to it? And the thing I love about graphic novels is I love picking up a graphic novel not knowing what I'm going to get, and getting something that surprises me and entertains me, right? And so that's all I ask for people is like, just give it a shot. Like if you're not feeling it by page 20, you don't have to go. And you know what? You can go to the library, at least in most states right now, is carrying it for the time being. Check it out, see what it's all about, and then if you like it, buy it. If you don't like it,
Yeah.
don't buy it.
Y'all
It's
got me on page 3, so
Yeah.
way before that. So
Well before that.
yeah.
Like I said, when I first got the book, I think I picked it up. I picked it up before New York Comic Con because I picked it up. Actually, shout out to Anyone Comics. Yeah, that's where I got it.
Mm.
I walked in Anyone Comics. It was sitting on the shelf. I was like, "What the fuck is that?" I saw the title. I didn't even realize that y'all two, my people had done it. I just saw the title right away, and Dimitri didn't have to say anything. I was like, "Give me that." Picked it up, took it home, realized y'all did it, started reading, and it came out last year, and last year was the year that I also released my first graphic novel, Jimi Hendrix Purple Haze.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I was so mad when I finished this shit because I was like, fuck, like,
Why are you mad?
Like, I know Jimmy's good, but damn it, like, these bastards over here have really
Great.
done something really special right here. So, like, if for anyone out there, if y'all are listeners and viewers, for everyone who loves Jimi Hendrix Purple Haze, I will say that, Big Jim and the White Boy is right up there, or, I have to admit, probably better.
It's not a competition, bro. It's not a competition.
It's different.
Yes,
different.
Thank you.
Different.
Yes.
But
And you know what? There's room for both.
Yes,
Absolutely.
there's definitely room.
Yes.
No, we need both. There's beyond the room for both because we desperately need them both. But no, when I finished it last year, I was like, yo, not only that, I was crying. And then I reread it again today and I'm crying again. So, y'all really did something special with this.
It's a great book. It's a great
Thank
graphic novel. Thank you very much. But before you guys go, we got to do how you want to introduce this, Ben? I'm gonna let you intro.
I mean, this is, the BRAP segment. You survived the interview segment. And now we have the BRAP segment, our rapid fire questionnaire. What character's death in any medium struck you the hardest? So we're going straight for the...
Yeah, you gotta go for it.
Dwayne Jones in Night of the Living Dead.
Oh shit.
Ooh.
Fam.
Wow.
Followed by Jim Kelly in Enter the Dragon.
Oh, wow. All right. So
always the black man dying in the other man's movies, right?
Yeah, you took mine. The one I will say, I have a bunch, but the one that comes to mind is definitely Wallace in The Wire.
God damn it. Y'all just like over here like breaking hearts.
Damn. Okay.
Where's Wallace, Stringer?
Oh no.
Come on, fam. Like,
that's heartbreaking.
Where's Wallace? Like,
can you name something that you love that most people don't? It could be like a movie, food, a character, anything.
That's a good one because I hate everything. So okay, I'll tell you this because this surprises everybody when I tell them this. My favorite movie of all time,
ever,
Jesus Christ Superstar.
Wow.
Okay. That is one that a lot of people don't necessarily like, but okay, that's a great answer.
I feel like you stumped me. Let's see. Dang. Something I like.
You like Macklemore? Like, is there some music, anything?
No, there's got to be a music one. All right, wait, hold on. Wait, music.
Don't say Macklemore.
No, I do not like Macklemore. Dang. Yo, okay, so I grew up in with a lot of 80s pop, so I know there's something trash in there that I really rock with.
Party all the time.
That's not trash.
That's Rick James.
He said that's classic.
Oh yeah, I mean, look, if other people don't like Rick James, I mean, obviously the man, debatable, but like, the music is unimpeachable. Like, so yeah, I mean, Yeah, let's say Rick James catalog.
I
Although I know a
mean,
lot of people like Rick James. So.
yeah. All right.
Yeah.
What was your first geek crush?
I know, don't mind. I don't mind. It's it's
Go
it's,
yours.
it's Aurora. It's Storm. It's Storm. And
Okay.
specifically because like my cousin introduced me to comics, and it was like right leading up into the era of Mohawk Storm, but
Fam.
specifically when she was the storyline with Forge, where she was going to confront Forge, and
Mm.
he was in the mountains, and I just was like, yo,
Mark
and
Silvestri.
Sylvester, yes,
Yeah, and she had the
and
big mohawk.
right, and
Yeah.
at the same time, actually, I had dual crushes. Because at the same time, I believe Monica Rambeau was leading the
Yeah,
Avengers.
she was. Yeah, she
I remember
was.
just
Yep.
being like, there's two black women that have these like prominent roles, like in these incredible team books. So, but
I
definitely Storm
just
first.
Okay.
I just reread the Paul Smith X-Men run, and yeah, that man, he only did 10 issues, and it was just like, yo, what the
Is that all? Just 10?
10? And Mohawk
God.
Storm is in there, the Wolverine
Yeah,
Silver Samurai fight. It's
yeah,
like there's
yeah.
so many epic moments in these 10 issues that this, and yeah, I do something else. All right, who is your geek crush?
Mine, there was two.
Mm-hmm.
One was actually it was three, but one of them was, or two of them were played by the same actress. So the first was Nichelle Nichols on
Wow.
Star Trek. Um
Yeah, that's perfect.
and
Yeah.
Yeah.
and especially the episode, the Mirror episode, where
Mm.
she's like has to pretend to be extra badass and she pulls the knife on
Mm-hmm.
Cthulhu. And I was like, and
I like that.
It's always the bad ones, right?
yeah.
Dark Phoenix was mine.
Oh
And then
yeah.
the other was, because I'm a little bit older, was in the reruns of the live action Batman, Batgirl, Yvonne Craig, who played Batgirl. I was just in love with her. And then, but she was also on an episode of Star Trek where she played one of the Green Orion girls, right?
Oh,
And so, like, I recognized her as being the same actress, but she was green, and I was like, yo, I like there's something about green
Right.
women to this day.
to this
Like
day.
I gotta like the She-Hulk even. It's
Yeah.
like green
Mm.
woman.
It does it for you.
Oh.
The Queen.
Wow. Wait. She-Hulk on
Yeah.
the 80s Hulk cartoon specifically. There's this one random episode where She-Hulk was
Yeah.
on there. I do remember that being very early. I don't even know how little I was, but I was like, yeah. Okay, so that's an early one too. But specifically on the 1980 Incredible Hulk
Oh,
series.
that's hilarious. All right.
You know what? You may have already answered this question in your other answers, but you have to choose Star Wars or Star Trek.
Star Trek.
I knew that.
Yeah.
This one is really hard for me. I do love them both. I'm not even trying to be diplomatic. I love them both for different things. Like I think it's weird to even put them up against each other. I will say Star Trek overall, but I am admittedly a big Star Wars person. And honestly, like Star Wars for me early on, like as far as like storytelling and just kind of like the grandness of it all, that like ignited my imagination when I was a kid. But and I had to mature into Star Trek is what I will say. Because
I
like
see.
Star Wars grabbed me as a kid. I'm like, boom, let's go. Matter of
Yep.
fact, the first one I saw was Return of the Jedi, which I know is not the best of the original trilogy, but like it
Still
captured
fire.
my imagination. It is. It absolutely is. But yeah, I grew into Star Trek and I was like, okay, I see what everybody's talking about.
Yeah. You can like them both.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do. But I would give the edge to Star Trek as an adult.
Okay.
All right.
I'll take it.
All right. What's your favorite superhero movie of all time?
That's a good one. I should just say Meteor Man just to be that guy.
I may go for it.
I love it.
Yeah.
No, my favorite superhero movie of all time, I'm gonna say, really is Into the Spider-Verse.
Ah.
I think that is like a work of art on monumental levels, and it gave us
Yes.
it brought Miles Morales to the screen.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Can mine be a tie?
Of
Mm-hmm.
course.
Okay. It's definitely, and they were very close in release date, but it is a tie between Into the Spider-Verse and the first Black Panther film. And and a big part of it is I think they are incredible works of art.
Mm-hmm.
But yo, I mean when Black Panther like is around this time of 2018, and I just remember it felt like we were all walking on air, Black people. You know what I mean? And it was like,
Man.
and then you
Man.
went to see it, and then the film, and then like when T'Challa says the has that last thing, and it cuts to all the stars.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
was like, yo, I had chills, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
my
I'm
best
getting the
friend,
chills right now just
Talk
thinking
about
about it.
crying. I was
yeah, yeah,
bawling in the beginning.
Yeah.
Just
and I just
Falling.
yeah, and my like one of my like just best friends, she had moved to the other side to actually to David's neck of the woods like a year earlier, and she like specifically she came back to she was back in town and she was like, yo, I want to go with you and the family to go see this, and like and so like just experiencing that with her and all of the stuff, all of us walking on air during a dark time, it just for me that was like amazing. And then Spider-Verse, it's like yeah, like the way it pushed animation, you know what I mean, and like the things that you could do with animation and bringing Miles to the screen and just really having this this young Black kid like just be the have to find his footing as his hero. But then when you get to that like what's up danger, you know what I mean, when he
mm-hmm.
unlocks his his power up, yo, that just that had me, so those are the two.
Nah,
Excellent.
just yeah. I mean, I just like I remember when right before Black Panther, I think it was I went to a screening. It was me, my brother Mello, who I wrote Jimmy with. Chuck Creedmoor was there, a few other cats, and we're just all like, "Yo, please let this be good. Please let this be good. Please let this."
Yeah,
Because we're some of the first to see it, and we're like, "Yo, even if it's terrible, we're gonna come out here and be like, this is the greatest movie ever."
Yeah.
But then we walked out, and I have video of us where we walked out, and we're like, "Yo, what did y'all think?" And it's just the looks on our faces. I could, just it's the elation, man.
The impact
yeah,
that
Yeah,
had, right?
No, I would have to say Black Panther's a close second behind Into
yeah.
the Spider
No,
for
no,
sure.
it's
But
yeah. And then that's the other memory I have is when I saw Into the Spider-Verse, Tatiana, we saw it together,
Yep.
and
We were
uh,
in awe.
our
yeah.
boy Beans, he'd already seen it, and we're standing in line with him, and he's like, I'm like, yo, Beans, tell me how it is, but no spoilers, none of that. He's like, yo, Ben, it might be better than Black Panther. And I was like, Beans, fuck out of here. Man, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, why would you
And
say
then,
that?
and then at the end of the movie, I'm like,
You might be right.
as I'm wiping away tears, I'm like,
Yeah.
well,
No. Just both just major.
he's out of line, but he ain't wrong.
Major. No, very
all right.
major. Just two more, right?
Yep.
If you could have a theme song play when you walked
Mhm.
into a room, what would it be?
Unyielding Conditioning by Fishbone.
Wow.
I have to hear that song.
That
I'm
is
gonna
the
have to play that
song.
song so I can see what you're
That
talking
is the
about.
song that gets me through.
I got kicked in
Fishbone.
the neck at a Fishbone show in DC. A dude came over to crowd surfing and whap, boot to the neck. But lead singer also threw his saxophone to a roadie like across the stage. It was one of the most beautiful moments in rock that I've ever seen. So yeah,
It was. I took a boot to the face at a Rage Against the Machine show.
Oh, you
worth it.
Rage, love it.
I only saw Rage for the first time like 2 years ago, and oh my god,
I would love to see Rage.
I wasn't a fan like that until I saw them live, and that's older than 2 years ago now. It's like 5 years ago now, but Zach was fucking. He was he had one of his legs was broken, and he did this show from a box and destroyed it, like sitting and just it was, yeah.
The Rage show that I saw where I took a boot to the face, their album hadn't even been out a month.
Oh
And they
god.
were opening for Public Enemy.
Oh god.
And so I was like, what's Rage Against the Machine? What can they be like? And they came out and I was like, what? Huh? What? So,
Serve forces are the
Yeah,
same that burn
Fish-
crosses.
Fishbone was a Goody Mob, De La Soul, and then Fishbone. And so I was there for the first two. And then I was like, well, I'll just stand around in the crowd, for Fishbone. And then I took that one to the neck.
You guys taking boots in the face. Jesus Christ. Marcus, what about you? What's your theme song when you walk into a room?
Oh man. All right. So I got two and I'm sorry to do double answers, but like it kind of depends on the situation. But like I guess the one, and I swear this baseline, it's the baseline to me, but it's Massive Attack's Angel. It's just like, because you talk about walking into a room, I picture that's just like a walking song, period. There is that. But then it's just like, I love Kane, I love everybody, but like, Rakim is the GOAT. And I gotta say, like, don't sweat the technique. Like, just that from the baseline. Yeah, I got a lot of Rakim ones it could be. But
my second choice would have been Microphone Fiend.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been listening to Follow the Leader a lot this week because I just thought about it. And it's like, all right, we could talk all day about Follow the Leader, but like that is one of I feel like it's underappreciated. I know it's appreciated, but like that was like a year after Paid in Full, and they just like, oh, you thought that was good? You know what I mean? Like Rod was like, he was coming out with like just even more crazy patterns, like on top of everything. I feel like his creativity is kind of underrated because I think people think about him being nice, but if you think about just him thinking up that stuff, and there really wasn't a precedent, you know what I mean? Like, there was a lot of cats that were creative and like doing it, but like he was just taking it to another level. Like even when he says like, he says like RAR stands for R, switch it around,
it still turns out R.
Like that, come on, man, who thinks of that? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah.
Bro, that was something that like I heard it a million times, and then it's like one day I think I was in college, and I'm sitting there with my brother DJ Analyze, and I was like, yo, this motherfucker said turning around, still comes out R.
A-R.
Like, A-R.
Like,
my name's Raw, turning around, it still comes out R. Like this.
He's just got an album full of that stuff.
Yeah. On that note, you should peep on YouTube. The channel is great in general. Digging the Greats.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a great channel in general, but they just dropped a video about Don't Sweat the Technique and just his rhyme pattern and everything about how genius Don't Sweat the Technique is alone by itself. So
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Everyone out there, in fact, I was watching the D'Angelo Voodoo breakdown. It's brilliant.
Ooh,
so
I'm gonna have to watch that too.
God damn, yeah, it's a great channel. All right, if you could have anyone's superpower, what would it be?
David, you got one?
To make people treat each other better.
Oh, come on!
So
David.
You're gonna be the Falcon.
Revenge.
You're gonna be the Falcon. You're gonna talk through your problems.
Okay. So if you don't want me to get that existential, I would like the ability to teleport, because then I could like over any distance, because that way I could like go have lunch with my cousins in Tennessee and not have to get on a plane and do layovers. So like teleportation.
Yeah, you don't want to fly right now. Yeah.
Oh Jesus.
Oh, come on. I'm about to get on a flight. Thanks.
Right. I'm sorry, Ben. I'm sorry. You'll be good. You will be good.
I'm getting on one next week too. So yeah.
I'm sorry to everybody.
It's okay. What about you, Marcus?
Let's see. Mine would be. See, I'm inclined again to think of something existential, but I'm gonna keep it old school.
Keep it cute.
And let's think of the powers that people have. Yo, I'm gonna go. All right, I was about to say the healing power, but that's garbage because you still hurt. Like Wolverine is hurting all the time, despite his healing factor. So I'm gonna go with. Yeah, I don't want to be bulletproof because that's the black man's power. It's been done.
You don't want to be Luke Cage,
so,
okay?
Yeah, you know what I want to do? Like, all right, this again goes back to my '80s cartoon watching. I thought it was really dope how the Incredible Hulk could just be in one city and just leap to another city. You know what I mean? I want just specifically
big leap.
leaping ability. And I did high jump when I was in high school, but
okay, so that's where the influence comes from. I'm like, why leaping?
but like to
actually, you want that for real? Like, I'm out. Like, one minute you stand here and just be like, peace, and then,
Yo, that was funny to me as a kid because he would just be like, and he'd be in like Cincinnati or something.
No.
Like, so, like, yeah.
That shit was real. Because the cartoon, that man would leap from city to city.
Yes,
like,
yes.
It'd be like one leap to the next city.
Oh my God. You want it for comedic purposes. That's what
Yeah.
that's
No, for real, because the visual of it would be hilarious. Like,
that's actually a really funny skit. I should write that. But that's wonderful. We really appreciate the both of you being here. This was an insightful conversation. This was both deep, funny. It was a great analysis of Big Jim and the White Boy. We told y'all how this impacted us, and it's something that I really hope a lot more people discover because it is truly a phenomenal book. Beautiful work between the both of you. Thank you so much. Before we get out of here, can you please tell people where to find you, where to find your work? If you want to plug any other projects you have, please share.
I haven't been spending too much time on social media, but if you just look for David F. Walker, you're going to find me most places. My website is davidfwalker.com, and I am getting ready to next month. I will be starting my Patreon. It'll be the return of my publication Badass Mofo, which is going to be both a podcast and a publication.
Huh?
And I'm self-publishing a graphic novel. Now I don't have anything set up yet because I'm behind schedule. But David F. Walker, once you go there, will take you everywhere you need to go.
Awesome.
Yeah, and please support my man's Patreon because I get I've gotten he's told me about like a lot of things he's got cooking and they're crazy and you're talking about somebody who is like David mentioned has been building and honing these skills for years, so it's gonna be dope. But for me, you can find me at marcuskwame.com. That's got links to all my socials. Probably the ones I actually use the most are Blue Sky. You can find me on there. And it's Instagram for now. Meta's garbage. But yeah, Blue Sky and Instagram. At Marcus Kwame on Blue Sky and then at Marcus_Kwame on Instagram because somebody done squatted on my name.
Oh, damn. Okay. And any upcoming
I don't even know
projects
what
or
my
something?
Blue Sky is.
What was that?
Any upcoming projects or anything you want to plug, Marcus, that you could talk about?
Yes, I'm pretty sure I could talk about this because I think the publisher did announce it way back, but I am starting work on a graphic novel adaptation of Harriet Tubman's biography. So I'm excited about that.
That's gonna be fire. I already know.
Dope.
Yeah.
I'm jealous of that one.
I wish you were writing, man, but we will reunite.
We'll work on other stuff together. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you both for joining us, and thank you everyone out there for joining us on this episode of For All Nerds. And we will be back as always.
Hey, what's up, internets and the fan fam? This is Tatiana King for All Nerds, and I want to thank you so much for listening and watching to All Nerds. Make sure you like and subscribe to us only on YouTube.
For All Nerds Show is a member of the Loudspeakers Network, where we always say rest in peace to our founder, Combat Jack.
For All Nerds Show is powered by our listeners. Everything we do, from our podcasts, live events, our website, are all independently funded. Please continue to support us through our Patreon page at patreon.com/forallnerds.